Welcome to Wealth Transfer News, global economics, biblical principles, protecting and preserving your family's wealth. Oh yeah, with information. And we're going to say it anyway, we have wonderful viewers. We were talking about that before we started.
Absolutely.
I am Terry Sacka, Chief Strategist, along with Dr. Charles Vance, and we do appreciate you. We've had some wonderful, loyal viewers for years, and we do want to let you know real quick that we are getting ready to move to Uplift Television. It's going to be wonderful because it'll be a better programming time so we can capture the West Coast. Uplift Television is also going to be on Dish and Direct, and we wanted to get back there. We really do appreciate World Harvest. They were supposed to be on Dish, and they just haven't gotten there yet, but we do want to come back to World Harvest in the future to do a daily program. We're just going to have to work out the logistics, but we are moving to Uplift Television. You're going to be able to continue seeing Wealth Transfer News. It'll be right there in the TV guide. You can't miss it. It's right in with the Christian stations. So we look forward to seeing you there as well.
We're certainly glad you took time to join us today. Want you to stay around for the next 30 minutes. Got some great things to share with you on the broadcast. Terry, we've still got, I feel like I have to mention this because people that are normal viewers are not used to seeing this behind us. They're normally used to seeing the big blue gold globe that
maybe we should do something different, huh? Is that depressing? I don't know.
No, I don't
love
know.
it because it's awareness. It's trying
it
to
is an awareness.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want people to be aware that we've been, for the last 6 or so weeks, we've been talking about the end of the dollar, not the end that that people are going to crinkle this up and throw it away, but that it's not going to be the purchasing power is not going to be the same. It continues to decline. It's actually doing that on a regular basis now, but we're going to see some more dramatic things take place in the near future, we believe.
And you know, what I like what you're saying, I think we should even caveat a little bit, or it's the purchasing power is going to change, and Charles said that correctly. What you're seeing, though, in the markets, the dollar's strong. You see, oh, the dollar's doing well, your financial advisor, dollar's strong. No, it's really not. The only reason the dollar has value at all is it's measured to the euro. Like we do this, it's like a teeter-totter. One goes up, one goes down, and Europe is in just devastating depression. And it doesn't help that they have, millions of Islamic refugees destroying their communities and their culture. So it's not helping. They're in a real bad spot. So because Europe is in such a bad spot, it's helping the dollar look strong. But what you notice is they say the dollar's strong, but Charles has it exactly right. Our purchasing power isn't, is it? No, not even close. Doesn't even buy even remote. I can't believe rents. We moved our office facilities from North Carolina back down to Florida, where we do have the minting and refining done. I can't believe the rent has doubled in those areas. And I actually had to pay raises to everybody so they could afford the adjustments. So I was wondering if that was a good move, but they better have good motivation to be back there. They're all happy to be back there.
They wanted to be back there for the sunshine.
The sunshine, to keep them going.
But
so we have had a very, very strong disintegration of our buying power. So regardless if this has happened like this, if it's a collapse overnight, I think that's what folks are kind of thinking. But if your buying power has been steadily decreasing, are you better off? And that's what we're getting at with the end of the dollar, because the challenges to the petrodollar that China and Russia are putting to it, the challenges globally is the dollar reserve currency. Now that China is a reserve currency in the IMF is exactly our point here. And we're going to show some examples today I think you're going to really, really like. And you know what I'd like to do is have Charles give us a word of wisdom on biblical financial management. There are some great parables on what we should be doing with that before we get into these details, because I think if we understand God has always been trying to tell us to be good stewards, always been trying to tell us to be good managers. If we've been doing that all along, just think, if we've been in silver all along, which is biblical, we would have been significantly wealthier. That is a fact. And it's just about management of the world or management of what God's given us.
God rewards management differently than the world system rewards management. If you look at Matthew chapter 25, there's a parable there that's probably headlined in your Bible, the parable of the talents. And an owner brings 5 talents to one man, which is a measure of weight of silver or gold. 2 talents to another, and 1 talent to another. The Bible said according to their ability. And he goes away, tells them to use that to increase it. And when he comes back, he has a reckoning. And the man with the 5 talents said, hey, he said, I've doubled it, and here's your money back, 10 talents. And the Lord, the master, said, well done, you're a good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a few things. I'll make you faithful. I'll make you a ruler over many. Same thing happened with the man with 2. The man with 1 is quite eye-opening. He came to the master and said, you know, I was afraid to do anything with this, so I stuck it in the ground. I hid it. You can read it for yourself. It's in your Bible. He said, I hid it. And he said, you're wicked and slothful. Now, to most people, they wouldn't consider that to be a wicked and slothful move. Slow means sluggish, lazy, stupid. He said, you're a wicked and slothful servant. He said, take what he has and give it to the man with 10. Isn't that interesting? That sounds like just the opposite of what we do in our society. People without, that refuse to work, that refuse to be productive, are seemingly the people that our government rewards. And people that are working hard are seemingly the people that the government tries to take more from. God did just the opposite. And I've learned that God will bless you when you become a good manager of what He's allowed you to have, when you use it to reproduce with it. I'm convinced there are 2 types of people in the world. There's producers and consumers. If you let a consumer run wild, they'll completely take and ruin everything they have, just run through it. And if you let them, they'll run through everything you have as well. Producers are people that are always producing more. They always take what they have, figure out a way to make it be more productive. That's where God wants us to be. And those are people that are rewarded. In fact, you'll be rewarded financially if you learn to do that and be a good manager of what you have. Don't just stick what you have in a hole somewhere. Terry, that hole for some people might be a bank that they just...
Well, and you know, Charles, people are going to say, I've had them say this, and you know, oh, well, gold and silver is no good because you just buy it, stick it in a vault. And that's not what you're doing, though. What you're doing is you're buying something that is preserving your buying power.
Absolutely.
So you're going into the stock market, the bond market, and a bank, and you're not getting anything. Banks are negative interest rates. They're actually charging you to keep money there. Stocks and bonds, you really haven't made anything. I don't know about most of you, but my guess is for the year 2016, you've profited pretty much nothing. And our buying power has been disintegrated to a degree this year as well. So you're not really gaining. Where silver in the vault, this year anyway, is still up, even though they keep trying to crush it derivatively, still up well over 20% by the end of the year. It's still better than the stock market, I know that. So the point is you're growing, it's moving, it's turning into something, and then you can use it later on. It's protection and preservation. So
that's a vital key for us. If we're going to have the blessings of God on our life, and you know, we don't talk about this a whole lot because we don't want to get into a real spiritual type of program. I've got one of those. We call it Empowered. You can find it on the internet and find it on some of your television stations around. We want to let people know the importance of being good managers.
Yes.
And a part of being a good manager is to make sure that you have what you have protected and it's reproducing, that you're doing something to reproduce with it. I had a friend of mine that sat under one of my financial seminars that had some money just laying in a bank. And when he got finished with the seminar, he said, gosh, I feel like I've just been wasting my time with having money in the bank. And basically you are, because inflation is eating and chipping away at the buying power that it has.
Well, that's
and
true.
We just need to be wise people. We need to be investing our retirements, money that you want as a nest egg. Everybody needs that. But you don't want to put it somewhere where it's going to be depleted, but rather somewhere where it's going to be increased.
And see, this has been orchestrated, Charles. It really has. I want to go to this image here. It's just a really extraordinary view of American history going back to the 1800s. And actually, it's really 1917, but we all know what happened in 1913, right? But this, you can't really make this up. On the back side here of me, I always do that, right here. The green line is the bottom 30% of earners, basically we the people. And the red line is the top 1%, basically the bankers. Back in the day, in the early 1900s, if you've noticed, the green line was significantly increased all the way through the 60s. Up to the very top there where the yellow arrow, and I did send these graphics over, Stephen. I'm sorry, I don't know if I mentioned that to you. They are in there if you want to maybe capture some of those for the future. But this yellow arrow is from August 1971 when Nixon ended the U.S. gold standard. So if you notice, we, the people, actually had a massive increase all through the 20th century there, up until we ended the gold standard, which was the true and honest measure of money. And if you've noticed, the bankers didn't really make a whole lot of gain in wealth at all through the 20th century. Very interesting, isn't it? But you've noticed since the 70s, what happened to that red line? Went straight up. And what happened to the green line? We, the people, started going down. Now, what it's telling you is coming off the gold standard was an orchestrated event to transfer wealth from earning and wealth growth from we, the people, to the banks. And back in the days, because the people were able to hold on to real money and they were able to hang on to savings that appreciated, and the banks didn't make any money. This was the biggest epic, I don't want to use the words that people use all the time, play on the American people's wealth. And Charles had it right. There's producers, then there's those in the state. And I'm just saying, those are antichrist Luciferian socialists that have been designing this system to lead it away from we the people, empower the few so they can have power and control over you. And it's coming to an end because we've now seen a cycle. This has been almost now, 45 plus years in the making. This is the cycle, 55 years now. This is the cycle. It is coming to an end. What's next? We just don't know. Many believe a one world consolidated system. I'm not so sure this time, but it's definitely going to hurt. It's going to hurt those that are hanging on to this. So get an education. And what we want to do is we're going to take a break, but I want you to take it seriously. Cornerstone is here. They're educated. They produce a 4.9 purity silver private vault storage or IRA rollover or send home to you that will be a tremendous storage of value for your future. Don't register right now. Don't get on the computer now. Wait till the program's over and then go ahead, but pay attention to this and at least take the information down.
Are you concerned about the security of your financial future? Cornerstone Asset Metals is here to help you prepare for the extraordinary times ahead by protecting and preserving your assets through silver and gold. At Cornerstone, the protection and preservation of your investment is our first goal. So we are here to serve you with honesty, transparency, and respect. Take control of your future by registering on our website at cornerstoneassetmetals.com. Or call us toll-free at 888-747-3309. Call now, 888-747-3309. At Cornerstone, securing your future is our goal.
Terry, this is you've seen this. You can't get close enough with the camera to see this. This says on the back of this, what's that look like to you? $100 bill. Both sides of it looks cool, doesn't it? Says right on the back, motion picture use only. It's a prop. We don't bring $100 bills in the studio and just leave them sitting here because there's cleaning folks that come through.
You don't trust your cleaning
folks? We love all of our cleaning folks, but we don't leave them around because they could leave the door open. Now, this, would you give me like $100 worth of silver for this?
You know, that's a great point. I know where you're going with this.
I just want to know
and
if you
know
would.
What? I love that because that chart behind us, we were talking about this in the break. That chart behind us, we were saying, isn't that extraordinary how we, the people, all through the early 19th or 20th century, were gaining in wealth? That's that line above, the green line, all the way to the gold standard.
Real wealth.
Real wealth,
not
yes.
just paper.
Because this
currency.
chart is showing you the percentage of wealth increase over the generations to we the people. It was extraordinary. And then if you notice the red, which is the banking system, they were on the bottom. They didn't really have a lot of money at all.
Until
they come off the gold standard. And what they did is so eloquently robbed we the people of our real wealth ability to grow. And if you've noticed, since the gold standard came off, we have flatlined as the people's wealth, and it's gotten worse. Why? And Charles made the best point. They're printing the money.
Making these.
Because they're printing the money, they're able to print the money out of thin air. They then take it and put it in the stock markets, in the investment world, and they were trading it. So the top 1%, which were the bankers and traders of Wall Street, were making a fortune ever since the late 70s, 80s, after we went through the first cycle anyway of gold and silver explosion and the big market crash. After that, though, if you've noticed, we have orchestrated recessions because of too much credit extended, and then we pull back. We've gone through the doozy load since 2008, though, printed trillions and trillions of dollars.
And you know this just catches me. And I didn't know what this meant for years. I would read this. This note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. That's actually a government law, a federal law, that you have to take this as currency. Mm-hmm. You have to take it in exchange for any debt, public or private.
Right.
They've made a law.
Yes.
Is it worth anything?
No.
No.
Well, it's lost its buying power.
Well, and it has no intrinsic value whatsoever either. I mean, you can't trade it for, you can't go to a, the only reason you can trade this for anything is because this is printed on here.
Right.
And the government makes you take it.
Right.
If you wouldn't take this one, this is the fake one. This was a real $1 bill. Nobody with any sense would take this if I'd take it into a store and say, I'm going to buy something. They'd say, you're counterfeiting, man. We're going to put you in jail.
And see, but that's what's fascinating is because the wealth transfer that took place since we came off the gold standard was the money printing. They were printing this, but they were printing this so slowly, you didn't realize it. When we came off that standard back in the 70s, when Nixon did that, it was a total lie, by the way. They knew they were never going back. And the Europeans were the ones calling their gold back because they realized we were printing money that didn't back up with gold. That's why they were calling it out. De Gaulle and them were calling back their gold because they didn't trust the American paper anymore. What's interesting is they kept printing. We had $300 billion in circulation back in the day. And today on the books, it's trillions and trillions and trillions. And in Barack Hussein Obama's term, they have literally gone nuts with QE and trillions. The Federal Reserve has printed $4 trillion on the books, $10 trillion worth of swap loans. We bailed out the world with nothing but printed fake money. So what you saw in wealth transfer going from the very beginning of our time to coming off the gold till now, what do you think is going to happen going forward when we've printed absolute trillions and trillions into the system? It's so significantly worse right now than it has ever been. That's why we're telling you it's just a matter of time when the mousetrap snaps. And we just don't want the kingdom to get caught short with that, because I can't explain this any better. But here's another chart I think it might help. Let me put this one up, Charles. You're gonna like this one too. It's known as the U.S. inflation. If we go back all the way to the 1800s, we literally had a negative 0.2% of inflation. We never did because we're on the gold standard. Let's leave this up for just a second, because the green line on the left was before the Federal Reserve was created. And we didn't have inflation because the spending of our money by governments was tied to how much gold and silver they had. And if they didn't have the gold and silver, they couldn't spend it. So we basically had a budget constraint on the government. As soon as the Federal Reserve was created there in the middle, you noticed, we started to see the line go up. The red arrow points from the Federal Reserve creation all the way to when Nixon abandoned the gold standard in the 70s, and we averaged at that point 3.3% inflation. Now, we had no inflation for like 100 years because it was all based on gold, and inflation started when they created paper money.
Simplest definition of inflation for folks.
Inflation is when there's basically too much chasing too little goods. It's they're printing money, and so when they're printing money, there's too much of it chasing all these little goods, and it costs more and more, so prices go up.
More currency to buy the same product.
To buy the same product.
Okay.
And so if you've noticed, now Nixon creates the gold, gets off the gold standard. So they create this mandate saying 3% inflation was normal. There's nothing normal about it. What it was a stealth robbery of we, the people of the United States. Because all before, if you've seen on that chart, all the way leading up to the gold abandonment in the 70s, we had no inflation. It only started when they came off the gold standard. Well, when the Federal was created in 1913, going to the gold standard in the 70s. But they were saying 3% was normal inflation. No, it wasn't. That was 3% robbery because they were printing money. If you noticed, yes, we were on the gold standard from 1913 to 1970, but they were fractionalizing it. It was 1-to-1, and then it was a collateral, and then it was 40-to-1.
So there was none of that before the Federal Reserve.
It was 1-to-1
created.
That's
exactly.
Right. 1 ounce of gold was 1 ounce of gold.
$1 bought a $1 silver coin.
That's exactly right.
Or
yes.
$5 bought a $5 gold piece.
Yes.
Exactly what.
So that's why we had no inflation.
When the Federal Reserve was created, there was a law that was created that they could have what's called fractional banking, which means they only had to have a certain amount of this now, and they could have more of these.
Yeah, because you remember in the Great Depression, what came out of that? All of a sudden, gold instead of 1-to-1, now it was all of a sudden they mandated the pricing. And then you had Bretton Woods coming in, and all they did was basically say, well, we only need 40% gold to back the currency. So to the point where no gold backed the currency is what it got to.
So the Great Depression, people went in to get their money, and there was nothing there to back their money, because of the fractional system. What the fractional banking system did was the federal government made laws that they could place one of these in deposit and then loan up to 60, depending on what kind of banking system you were. You could loan up to 60 on paper. The problem with that is if everybody comes back and wants their money, how are they going to get their money?
Well, they're not. And you know what? If you notice on the far right side of that chart, ever since we came off the gold standard, look at how it's skyrocketed straight up.
Yep.
That's straight up right there. That is because they were printing so much money. And what did that do? Because of that, they were robbing we the people of our generational wealth. What did that do? Look at this one. Next one here. This is the best example I could put out.
That's a good one.
1972, and when we came off a $20 bill, bought you that entire basket load of groceries. And then 1992, half the basket load of groceries. And right now, or 2012, a few items. I can't make up the importance of what you just saw through those charts. They call inflation normal. I'm telling you, it was a lie, a criminal act of robbery against we the people's wealth. But because they control the system, obviously, you know, they get away with it. But there is an example right there. There was no such thing as inflation before the Federal Reserve was created. They were created to get away with printing money out of thin air for their own power, greed, lust, and war and control. Thing is, if we the people had always been holding on to silver, since the 70s when we came off that gold standard, silver has gone up 1,900% in buying power value, and your paper dollar, as you saw with that image, has bought you far less in groceries. If you would have been saving your silver since that period in your retirement versus paper, you would not only be buying that whole entire cart full of groceries, you'd be buying then some, because this would be worth far more. So you see, so it's an extraordinary thing to try to get, and it's hard to understand. I do know, because I'm going to get into the rest of that later, because what's tied to, we'll leave you with this. We're in a period now where it can't recover. And I know this is terrible news, but it can't right this minute. We have to go through the reckoning, and I'm going to tell you why. The largest generation that created wealth for us were the baby boomers. They were the generation through the 70s, 80s, 90s that were earning all of this money through the printing and earning the wealth. The problem is, and we'll show you this next week, the baby boomers are retiring like 10,000 every day, coming off of taxes and going on to these programs that we don't have any money for. We have about 100 trillion in IOUs for Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid, and such obligation. Bigger problem, baby boomers are no longer spending money. They're not just flying off the handle and buying these clothes and these purses, these crystal shoes, or taking trips. They're saving money. They're no longer buying fancy pens, from China. They're saving money. So what they're doing is, because they're saving money, they're not spending money, and that's the largest generation. And our new generation, known as millennial, they don't have any money. And they're probably not going to do very well because of the conditions in front of them. So what I'm saying is we have this deflationary behavior coming in that's going to destroy our economy, because our economy runs off of increased inflation, debt, deficit, and spending. We can't create any more debt, really, deficit and spending, much anyway. And so there's this paradox, and people don't know how to take it. But here's why I can tell you prices won't be coming down like deflationary definitions. It won't get better. Keynesian economics says you must have inflation and get more debt in order to survive. We're a Keynesian economic model. Those twin towers that went down in 9/11 was not by accident. There were so many things attached to that, spiritually and financially. That's what Keynesian economics is. It builds towers of debt, and it has to keep going. But we all know towers eventually come down. And unfortunately, what I just laid out to you is why we have to have a reckoning. Those properly positioned during this reckoning will be here when the dust settles to generate the new wealth for the new future. I just don't know when, but all I know is it's close enough. So next week we'll show you what we mean by that, but just be encouraged, because if you're in the right place, you'll be blessed.
Tell somebody about the broadcast. We're on at this same time, same place every week. We'd love for you to tell your friends, your family, everybody you know to join us next week right here. We'll see you then for the Wealth Transfer. Have a great week.
Cornerstone Asset Metals is here to help you protect and preserve what you have worked hard to gain. For those of you who have IRAs to protect, 401ks to preserve, or cash in the bank, we would like to send you a package of information regarding the changes to the dollar and the challenges of our economy that you need to be prepared for. This package includes how easy it is to roll over your current IRA or 401k into a physical precious metals IRA for long-term protection of your hard-earned wealth. For those of you who have cash to invest, we can arrange to have your precious metals stored in a private vault, or simply send it to your home. Call our toll-free number or register on our website now.